founder and CEO of Appleman Properties. Today we are joined with Sarah. Sarah is a Toronto native. She dove in real estate at age 3, grew up in real estate with her dad. At age 16, she took over his portfolio and later became the top agent. She has left a $400,000 income to focus on family and investing. Now in Costa Rica, Sarah empowers women in real estate. Sarah, we're excited to have you here with us today. If you could let the listeners know a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for having me on. It's always great to connect to other people in the industry. But yeah, you gave me a good intro. I mean, it sounds crazy that I started when I was 3, but it's like you were saying before we, started broadcasting that once you have it in your family, it just becomes natural. So I grew up cleaning units, going to Home Depot, like felt like every day, dealing with the books, walking checks to the bank, understanding the financials. So it just kind of set me up for where I am. And then I got into real estate sales because it seemed like a logical next step. And I was, really, really aggressive in that career path. So I was on the trajectory to essentially build $1 million business. And then from there, because I was investing as well, doing private lending, syndications, a number of different strategies, as well as owning a single family and multifamily properties, I kind of looked and I was like, hey, look, do I want to burn out in this career as a realtor, which is a 7-day-a-week job, or do I want to focus full time on investing? And it was around that time that I was also, starting to family plan because I have 2 kids under 3 now. So now we live in Costa Rica, and my husband and I are both real estate investors, and we focus on passive income from assets.
That's a really cool story, and just getting started that young, like my kids, they by default they have to hear about real estate because that's the conversation all the time, and just growing up in that environment and learning the little things just by passing conversation is huge, it's propelled you forward with real estate as well. What are some things that some roots that you've learned just being in the industry, the good stuff, the struggles, the real stuff in property management? What are some things, some takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, property management is, it can be fun at times. I mean, like I've had, drunk tenants, like stumble in the street, pee on the stairwell. I've had, people that, due to the tight regulations in my Toronto market, like paying tenants for them to like move out because they don't want to move out. So there's a variety of things that happen. But I think a lot of the times, to be honest, like you always hear the horror stories. I also have some amazing tenants that stay with me for 10 plus years. They're extremely respectful. We have a community at the asset. So I think that every job has, ups and downs, but overall it's kind of having that big why and saying, okay, this is all worth it. But the day to day may look a little bit messy. Sales as a realtor is just a total grind. Like you're chasing money all the time. So I think that there's always pros and cons, but the income you make as a realtor is fantastic. And I always leverage those commissions and invested them back into real estate. So there's that. From an investor perspective, I'm sure you as well understand this. Some deals go south.
Yeah.
I've had some deals where, I'm still waiting for returns that were delayed. And then I have some deals that went really, really well. So that's just the nature of real estate investing. There's highs and lows.
Yeah, there's definitely changing tides right now with the real estate investing world, which it's cyclical. So it's just what part of the timeline are we in currently, and where's that going to be at 5 years from now? There was we use Invest Next portal, and there's been a new feature put on for cash calls. So that kind of
Sign of the times.
lets you know that now that new feature is out there being used, and essentially a cash call is where a property needs to be recapitalized. They need an injection of cash in order to keep things operational. So to see that new feature that wasn't there before, it kind of tells you where the industry's at. And I've been very fortunate in buying right, and a great basis, and being able to be in a different position. But there's a lot of groups that are have floating debt, and things have changed rapidly. But where are you all mainly invested at? Is it just all over?
Yeah, so a variety of different places. I mean, in terms of like the syndications, you've got stuff in Dallas, some stuff in Orlando, Fort Worth, Arkansas, like random places. And then me personally, my personal portfolio, I have assets in Toronto, Canada. I had some syndication stuff in Belize actually as well. So a variety of different places. And each marketplace is different, right? Like a city like Toronto is an appreciation machine market. Like the appreciation is insane. It has slowed down slightly just with the market changes. But the cash flow is garbage, and the tenant regulations are are so strict that it's very challenging to be profitable, especially when things get tighter, right? Like those profit margins get so tight when you can't remove a tenant and your interest rates are going up. So, I'm in a variety of places, and each place has its pros and cons, I would say.
Yeah, I had a group on, I think it was last week, and they were also out of Toronto. Small world, but they were talking about the housing industry and how tough it is to really make it make sense, which is a shame because I think it's the way the prices are so inflated. It's hard to really grasp ownership, which that's becoming more of a norm as well. Um,
Hmm.
and then we are, of course, Sunbelt states where there was a large influx of population and job growth. I think things are slowing down in some of those areas as well. But um, what size properties are you all in?
Yeah, so personal portfolio is small multifamily, so like 5 or 6 units. I've also had condo units. But then when I get into multifamily, you're talking about like 80 plus units. That's just the syndication model. So a variety of different things. And then if you're getting to private lending and stuff, that can be single family properties if you're just doing, adding a second mortgage to the property and getting the cash flow from that. So I'm a big believer of diversification within real estate. I think that there's so many opportunities within this sector for somebody to kind of build a little bit of security in their portfolio, in some areas having more control, like if you have your own property, and then also if you're kind of relinquishing that control but getting the passive returns from a syndication. So I just, yeah, I dabbled everywhere, like I said, because I started so young, right? I'd had the opportunity to try different things.
Well, and that's definitely a great tool in your belt is the fact that you've started young and you have that experience. Can you tell us some of the ways that your experience has helped you vet out deals and even general partnership teams in order to see that they are a good or maybe not so good of an investment?
Definitely. I think as well, just, seasons of life. Like I'm a mom now, and my aggressive nature of like the early 20s, where I was like, let me just see how much money I can make like all the time, that's shifted. So I think I've gotten a little bit more cautious and wise with age. And in terms of who I'm working with, that proof of concept, in the past, I've invested in some deals where there wasn't so much of a track record from the sponsorship team, and that went, this way or the other. And now I'm a very big proponent of, if you're getting into a deal where you don't have control, you're relinquishing that control, you want to make sure that whoever you're investing with has maybe been through a few market cycles, they have a great track record, they've actually given investors there. I should say this in a way that people who are listening, if they're not actually in this model, they've gone full cycle, means like investors have invested, gotten their returns back, and also gotten their initial capital back on multiple occasions. So I just think that the relationships I'm building now in the industry are coming from a very cautious perspective. And I also tell people that, look, like, don't be putting, a large portion of your net worth into a syndication deal. Like, you want to look at maybe putting only like 10% or 15% in, maybe starting with a lower minimum, like 50, 60K, and then seeing how that process goes. And then the next deal you put in like 100, 200K. So I think that just through this timeline, especially in the market we're in, with people having been over leveraged, putting a lot of stuff at risk, now I'm just very cautious moving forward. But I also think, like, look, the deals that are going to come online in the next year, even though it's slow there, it's just going to naturally be so much more caution in the marketplace. So I think that the deals that are coming online are good, in terms of like the history of the last few years.
Yeah, yeah. The basis will certainly be back down to earth versus paying future value on a property. We were on a call. I think it was a week before last, but a group has put a property under contract. And one of my first questions, well, they're raising, I think, 1.7 million. But one of my questions was, have you walked the property? And I was expecting a yes and this and that. And they said no. So they put a property under contract without even going out there and visiting the property and walking it to get eyes on. And those are the kind of mistakes that really put investor capital at risk, as well as the general partnership. Just being, it boils down to experience. The the experience that the general partnership has, and if you're, like you had said, relinquishing control, you can't even swing that thing back to in a good position because ultimately you'd be a limited partner in the deal. But experience conquers all, because an experienced general partnership team would never put a property under contract without walking the deal first. And betting the deals and making sure that the team is going to make sure the deal performs is huge. Which your experience being in the industry, you would know that, and you'd be able to vet those deals letting someone else invest beside you, I'm sure.
Hmm.
Um, where do you see the wealth management? I know you're in, you can vet deals, you see good deals. Where do you see wealth management and investing in say 10 or 20 years from now?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm a woman, so I think that that's a big component as well in the sense of the shift from baby boomers right now are, moving a lot of their capital into their children. They're passing away, or there's a lot of like money flowing. There's like 30 trillion coming by 2030. And the reason I point out that I'm a woman is I'm like a lot of women are getting more involved in investing. I just think with the way that information is more shared and just seeing more people that are doing it, like I was very blessed once again that my dad just brought me into this world. So I do think that you're going to see a lot more women getting involved in investing. The stats show right now that it's a very small percentage, but I think that people are kind of waking up to like I need to kind of take responsibility at some level. We've kind of figured out the career thing. We're all working hard and taking care of kids, which as well, men are doing it too. Like there's just a lot more collaboration in terms of family structures and stuff, or at least in my experience. But I do think as this money changes hands, you're going to see more women getting involved in understanding investing and what their options are and what the opportunities are. I have one of my passive investors. She's actually like the breadwinner, right? Her husband's the one who is, kind of has more of a part-time role. And she's the one who's very, very into figuring out how to build their real estate portfolio, where they're going to invest next. So I'm just seeing the dynamics change a bit. And it's awesome. It's awesome to see.
Yeah, yeah, that's huge. Well, you see just changing in the industry and in the new norms, which is very cool to see that everyone can partake in different levels. Um, when you were doing real estate as a real estate agent, um, how did that side influence your investor side?
Yeah, so that was a great career for so many reasons. I would say first and foremost, you're really boots on the ground. So you're talking to people every day. That's basically your job. You're in sales. And I think as well, the structures of that role are very imperative for actually getting into this kind of investing space. Because essentially, I am bringing people on, they're trusting me, I'm helping them like get assets, but I also like to have conversations with them about like what their other options are. So I don't know a lot of realtors because they weren't investors, because unfortunately a lot of realtors aren't actually investing in real estate, which I think is very unfortunate because there is such a leg up just from an information perspective and access to
Yeah,
deals. But I would have a lot of conversations with my clients about like, okay, what if you could refinance? Why don't you leverage? Like all that type of stuff. And then as well, I was with Keller Williams, which to me was an incredible brokerage because it was so education based, and you really learned how to build an actual business. Like forget that it was real estate, you're building a structure where there's a sales model, a marketing model, lead generation, all of that. And I was able to take all those skill sets and bring them into investor relations when it comes to kind of the syndication space. So there was a lot of great things, although my career really burned me out, but I brought a lot from it that I will carry through in anything I do essentially.
being you've got your finger on the pulse as a real estate agent with where the market's heading, the dynamics, even path of progress or areas that are
Hmm.
gentrifying. I mean, like you'd said, there is truly a leg up on just information on being able to make some wise investment decisions. Just being there, being in place. That's a cool experience that you have for sure. Um, what are some struggles that you've had? What are some learning lessons that you've had along the way?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is like with investing, there's ups and downs. I think that would be just like my blanket statement, and always having a broad perspective. But I would say once again, it comes back to sponsorship teams if you're investing passively. So I've had so many deals where it's gone well. I get my returns back, and then I've had some deals where there's, like I mentioned before, there's delays, and then maybe based on who I invested with at that time. So now I think I'm really learning as I grow and who I'm going to invest with and who I'm making sure I'm vetting for deals. In terms of actually my own assets, I was very much a believer in investing in my backyard until I started to explore and actually move to the States and see more opportunities. Because in Toronto, a lot of people from Toronto, you think that your city is kind of the world of things. And I think that goes for any urban city. So I was always looking for ways to invest in Toronto, but my assets there, once I saw the cash flow, and investing in a condo, for example, you can't control the maintenance fees, you can't upgrade them, you can't Airbnb them. There's just such restrictions on that asset. So once rent stagnate, which is what happened to me during COVID, and interest rates go up, the cash flow is wiped out. So I've just seen how getting out of your backyard, in a sense, creates a lot more opportunity, and that's why I just see that the U.S. just has more potential. You're just a bigger country with more assets. Like, let's just be honest. So I think all of these experiences have made me more aware of where I want to invest and who I want to invest with.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's huge, and of course, playing in a right sandbox and in the right area makes the biggest difference. While one area could be going through depression as far as just local economies, there could be a whole another area that's thriving. Just totally depends on perspective too. The Going through COVID, that's where you left the $400,000 a year income. I mean, that's a huge transition, but ultimately it propelled you forward, right?
Yeah, and like I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. That was the hardest, like maybe not the hardest decision like in life, but it was really tough. Like I was career oriented. I was on a really, really good trajectory. Like I was like top agent under 30, 3 years in a row. Like I was just like crushing it. And this is all just because of hard work. Like there's nothing fancy about what I was
Yeah.
doing. But it really is that decision in life that I think a lot of us go to. If there's anybody on here that is a parent, which I know you are, Josh, we have to make decisions based
Yeah.
on what matters most. And for me, I did not see the workability in that business model for having young children. So I said, like, look, I'm going to focus this season of life on my kids. And it has been challenging to kind of shift out of that. But we all have to, like, as life goes on, you have to see what is my new reality, and how can I also still be productive and, interested in what I'm doing, which is investing and helping people and guiding them, and also be a great mom. So that was a big shift. And I think as well, that journey makes me realize, okay, but where is the top, right? Like I could keep making money, 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 but what difference is it actually making? Am I happier? What's my stress level? What is my level of presence with my family or with others? So it's been an interesting journey, and I'm still navigating it. Like I said, my kids are still 2 under 3, but I do see that, you have to kind of look at what really matters at the end of the day. Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the money matters when you want to have your expenses covered, which is what's great about real estate. But up to a certain point, you have the law of diminishing returns, and it doesn't actually improve your lifestyle, to be making a certain level of money.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you just keep. I know myself. I just keep pushing the goalpost a little bit further. So you've reached certain goals, mile markers, and then now that it just keeps getting pushing it down and keep matching successes. But really, I think it's taking the time to reflect back and making sure that the ones that are around you are winning with you too. It's easy
Mhm.
to neglect the ones that are closest to you, and ultimately they're the ones that are being affected the most. Just keep an eye on tunnel vision, which real estate will get you there. I like my kids, they'll come up to the office and visit, and just seeing them as much as possible, but it can definitely work can definitely take its toll.
Yeah.
Um, but it's fun. So, but Costa Rica. So tell us a little bit about the transition moving there, and how's the real estate there?
Yeah, so this has been we've lived abroad a few times. We lived in like Argentina, Belize, a few different places, and Costa Rica. This town that we're in specifically is called Nosara, and it's a lot of expats. And I think another thing, family. I just don't like what's going on with schools in a lot of cities. There's a lot of, in my opinion, they're politicizing a lot of stuff, and I don't like what's going down the pipeline and what kids would be learning in some of the public institutions. Personal opinion, not the truth. But we just saw what was happening, and we had friends that were in this area living here already. And it's because we have the opportunity to work remote. It just felt like a good place to be for this season of life. And so far, it is. It's a much more natural environment, obviously. Like there's the beach, there's nature. We don't have any tech, we don't have TV, none of that at home. Obviously, I work online, but my kids aren't using iPads or watching shows or anything like that. So I think for this season of their life, I really want to protect it as much as I can. You know what I mean? They can end up being a lawyer in New York if they want, but this was just a decision for our family that felt like the right fit. And I have to say, we feel very blessed to have done it, and it was because of real estate.
Yeah, yeah. You're ultimately we're programming our kids in any fashion possible, and when they're on their tablets watching YouTube, someone else is programming them. I know we've had to take away the tablets just to take a breather. You want to protect them as much as possible, and make sure that they're being brought up, and the schools have a lot to do with that as well, and making sure that they're being taught what our values are, and ethics. So I totally resonate with that 100%. Um, so on working online or working remotely, really you can work anywhere. What are some expectations that you have on investments and general partnerships that you invest with alongside and bring your investors with on
Yeah, and I
deals?
think I also didn't answer your question about real estate here. It's very expensive in this town. It's all expats. So like there's the Costa Rican real estate. I think it's the most expensive in all of Central America in this actual town. But otherwise you can get obviously a lot cheaper than major cities in the US. But back to your question in terms of vetting sponsorship teams, look, it really is. I touched on it before, but track record, also just responsiveness and how they communicate. I think sometimes it's hard to see how people communicate until things go a little bit south. So you'd want to know, okay, like in deals in the past that you've done, if you've had any issues, like how did you handle it? Like how did that actually affect investors? As well, people are more than able to go and ask for references and talk to other investors that have been with sponsorship teams for a long time. Like this is such a large financial decision for somebody to be, handing their money over to other people. So you have a right to ask many questions of the sponsorship team and ensure that there is also that alignment in values. Like if you're more somebody who's looking for like a lower risk investment, you may not want to be going into something that is, not so clear, but the returns are stratospheric. Like you may be better off getting, 11 or 12%, you know what I mean? Like a more mid-tier return, but you know that you're at craft equity or you're higher on the capital stack and you have that security. So I think it really depends on the individual. And on whenever I speak to people that are looking to invest, we have a very long conversation about what they're looking for to actually see if they're in alignment, like if my investment thesis is similar to theirs, because that's essentially who I'm bringing them on board with when we are, bringing them into a deal.
Yeah, yeah, and then it's playing matchmaker on different types of deals. If you're in a
Hmm.
deep value add, you're renovating all the units. You know that you're pushing for vacancies so that you can renovate and reposition a property. It's going to be a longer timeline, a longer horizon, versus something that is already. It might be lower returns, but it's already producing. It's an institutional grade asset. Everything's renovated. It's brand new. Returns are lower, but you're not going through the value add and renovation phase neither. So there's different investments, different appetites for each, and real estate can provide, or it just depends on their appetite, their risk tolerance. So it's definitely, and in this environment, I mean, there's a lot of moving things in different debt that's taken out on different type of assets too. So it's just playing matchmaker. I totally get that.
Hmm.
Um, what would be some advice that you would give somebody who's looking to invest in real estate or possibly purchase real estate and not really sure which direction to go?
I think the biggest thing that I always want to start somebody off with is like looking at their personal goals and what they're looking to do in terms of time commitment, how much control do they want. So I'm not one to say that there's only one way to be successful in real estate investing. Like I'm myself diversified, but I would say if somebody is trying to figure out which direction to go, first you want to look at like how much capital they have to allocate, as well. Do they want to be active or passive? Do they want to be an expert or do they want to work with experts in the field? Because everybody's time commitment is very different. If you're speaking to somebody who's in corporate, who's climbing that corporate ladder, honestly, trying to manage a few Airbnbs or trying to even manage a few single family homes, even investing out of state, may not be that workable. You may just not do that great of a job. And if you can't afford property management because the cash flow isn't there, then it's just going to not go so well. So it's really focusing on what their expectations are, what their long-term goals are, and what the right structure is for their lifestyle. That I think is critical for somebody to assess because there are so many ways that you can take real estate investing, but that's it. Like what amount of capital, what amount of time do you have are very important pieces. And then how much control do you want, I would say as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's huge because real estate on an ownership side is not passive at all. You need to be active and making sure. I call it trimming, keeping the grass cut, because once things get out of control, whether it's deferred maintenance or really anything of that could be an issue, it'll just be it'll keep compounding. It'd be a bigger issue with real estate. So it's if they're up and coming professional in their career, definitely invest aside experienced teams like yourself that know what to look for. Um, Very cool. What um what are some big successes and big wins that you've had through your experience?
I would say, I mean, my real estate career, I think, was to me a big accomplishment. Like, I really pushed for that, and I kind of made myself proud in a sense to be able to like make that amount of money and like really excel in that career. So I think that was good. But as well from an investing perspective, I think just the simple diligence of taking a portion of all those commissions and putting it into real estate investing. I think that the simplicity of that is what can be overlooked a lot of the times. Like, this isn't a get rich tomorrow type of venture, but if you can consistently take actions and put your money towards investing like long term, it's going to really work out for you. And I think as well some of my wins have been just taking the initiative and the action to explore different avenues of investing, and actually putting what is it, skin in the game, like putting money in these deals and seeing what the experience would be, and then learning about that sector. Because all of this information that I've done just simply by deploying my own capital is now opportunities that I can educate others in, and actually also have them profit as well, which is at the end of the day, this is investing. Like, we're here to make money. So I think that those would be my big wins, and just kind of carrying on the legacy of being in a family that started me out in real estate investing, and carrying that forward. I think that to me means something.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Very cool. What would be some books that you would recommend somebody to read that's starting out in real estate?
Oh my gosh, this is a loaded question because there's so many good ones. Um, I mean, there's the real estate Bible, which is Rich Dad Poor Dad, which isn't necessarily even a real estate Bible. It's more just like a shifting of perspective into the possibilities of, not trading your time for money. And that generally is always related back to investing in real estate. So I say Rich Dad Poor Dad, definitely. There's other books that I've read. I've read so many books. Richest Man in Babylon comes to mind. That's once again just more about like money management. But if you're looking for real estate books to kind of learn more strategic ways of investing, there's so many great ones from Bigger Pockets. I feel like they're just like the top of their game. There's ones about syndication, so hands-off real estate investor. There's ones about investing with no money down, which I know like a lot of people come to me and they're like, I don't have money, but I want to invest in real estate. So finding books that align with your strategies, I'd say, are critical to actually have you feel like, oh, I can do this even if I don't have like XYZ. So those are top of mind. But like I said, I probably read hundreds. Like, it's hard to narrow it down.
Well, it's and you want to keep leveling up and gaining knowledge, and books contain knowledge, and it's hard to make enough time to really get into book over book. And I try to on the way to work, the gym, just anywhere and everywhere, just gain knowledge from books. It's one little piece of information can change the trajectory on a decision. I mean, it's incredible. Um, if somebody wants to get a hold of you and learn more about yourself, how can they reach out?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, I'd say, is honestly the best way. So I'm very active on LinkedIn, just Sarah Miskelly. You can just type my name in. As well, you can go to my website, highlycapital.com. But LinkedIn, I would say, is the best way to, communicate. Just add or follow me.
Yep, and then we'll put your information in on this episode as well once we get it published. And definitely appreciate your wisdom, your experience. Look forward to following you, and appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a great conversation.
All right, thanks, Sarah. Bye.